Hey guys, what's up? I got everybody here from TMI. Don't forget to write us an email at tmipodcast2018. That's tmipodcast2018 at gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing. Also, check us out on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. Just use the numbers, don't spell it out.
Ooh, don't forget Facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018.
Follow us on the Apple Podcast app. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review.
All you YouTubers out there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, TMI Podcast 2018. Look for the popcorn bucket.
That's right. Also, check us out on Spotify and the Google Play Music app for all you Android users. Follow us and subscribe everywhere. We appreciate it. We're doing it for you guys, the fans. Thank you.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Dave Odinson Warhowski, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
All right, gentlemen, we're here. Welcome back, man.
Oh, we're back. Wow.
We're back.
Wow, that was quick.
We're on.
Woo.
Red light's on. So 1 week until our big Thanksgiving episode.
Yes. That should be exciting.
Yeah. And I
I
love
wonder
it.
what we're going to talk about. I guess you have to wait and find out.
Yeah.
Are we going to announce it at the end of this episode?
Yeah, I think we will.
Right?
Yeah.
We should.
So all three of us are here this week. Again.
Yay.
Mike, Jeff, hello. And I'm Jim.
Hello?
Mike, did you get like a backup generator this time?
No, every time I lose my power, I always say I'm going to, and then I never do.
Then
And I
you
lose
never
power
do.
again, and the whole cycle starts all over.
Yeah, Mike experienced both the gathering and the quickening last week.
Nice.
So this week, my friends, we were going to broach the subject of The Walking Dead again. It's been a long time,
It has been a while. I
but
don't think it's even been mentioned since the end of last season.
no, it hasn't. But recent events kind of forced our hand. And
Yeah. Who
we're
saw this
picking it up.
coming? Everyone.
Yeah, it's not like it's been heavily advertised in a
I know. Crazy.
in a
Which is
true-
so against what that show has always been about.
totally, yeah.
Right? I mean, that really they kind of prided themselves on kind of hiding each week who's gonna live, but after by like season 5, it's like, oh, you got your core 6 who are always gonna miraculously make it out. So for them to suddenly turn head and be like, all right, this is it. But I think the news got out, right? I don't think necessarily that they were looking to promote it until he mentioned it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think maybe.
And so then they were forced to deal with it. And so
Yeah.
they're like, all right, well, let's just make it an issue. And I think a lot of it kind of screams of desperation, because I can't tell you how many friends on social media are like, wow, I haven't watched that show in years, but maybe I'll watch this episode just to see Rick go out.
And every time an episode airs, all you read about is how ratings have, halved. So
Right.
I think this is kind of a ploy on their part to draw viewers back in. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we'll get into it.
All right. So we got some news to head up the hour here.
Yes, we do have some news. Is that my news? There we go.
That's your news. That's your
Cool.
cue.
I like it. My cue. Breaking Bad. We watch that show?
Yes.
I might be the only one who hasn't watched this show.
One season I watched.
Oh, wow, Mike. I thought maybe you'd be. I will tell you, it doesn't matter who I talk to. If this show comes up and somebody finds out that I did not watch this show, I get like chastised for it.
Is this one of those things that you say that you've watched just to
No.
avoid?
I straight up admit that I've never seen more than the first episode.
So yeah, I was invested.
Well, how long did it go on? I mean, it was on for.
Maybe because it's one of these shows like Walking Dead where it'll drop a half season, then be away for 5 or 6 months.
That's
So it's very hard to say for me how many seasons it was. Maybe
Right.
6 altogether.
Okay.
Seasons.
All right. Well, they just announced they're making a movie.
What?
Yeah. So, right. I mean, no spoil. I mean, even I know this, and I don't watch a show, which is the main character, Walter White. Isn't he dead? Did he die at the end of the season of the show?
Yes, he does. Did he die?
I don't know.
He did. Yeah, I think he did.
Okay. That left a lasting impression on you. I see.
Well, maybe they revive him with methamphetamine.
because he's stage 4 cancer. So I'm thinking, did he die or did he survive? But you know that he's going to die. I don't remember.
So sorry. Someone out there is listening to this right now, Jim, and yelling at you. Like, oh my God, how could you not remember this scene?
It's been several years since I've seen it. So
I mean, I don't know. The only thing I can think of, I mean, we have that Better Off Saul, which is a prequel, right? It's like that character leads into.
That character was so popular on Breaking Bad that, and rightfully so, they gave him a show.
Correct. He was a very well-known guy.
Former writer and star of Mr. Show, and former writer of Saturday Night Live from the Sandler Farley years.
Yeah, he's got the nice little pedigree. So I don't know. I mean, maybe the only other thing I could think of is that it's who is the kid? Jesse?
Yes.
All right. So maybe it's a Jesse-centric movie and they have some flashback with Cranston in as a cameo. I don't know. I thought it was interesting that I mean, again, like you said, the show's been off the air for a while. So for it to suddenly rear its head and be like, oh yeah, we're making a movie.
Is this an AMC movie?
I would assume so.
They seem to be happy. Now you're asking me getting happy with all these movies lately. So maybe we'll discuss that a little bit later too.
Yeah, well, they're going to start their own streaming service, so you'll only be able to watch it on ABC Plus.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
we need more details on this news.
All right, well, there you go. I laid the seed. We'll find out more, but we will follow up. So one of the other news, which we've talked about in the past, is this Disney streaming service.
Yes,
they've officially released a title for it and a release date. So it's going to launch the end of 2019, and it is going to be known as Disney Plus. Does that just instill excitement in you? Disney Plus. Like, what kind of focus groups did they do to come up with this?
Exactly. Millions of dollars spent trying to come
up. I mean, I think the three of us could sit around for 5 minutes and brainstorm a better name.
It sounds like the 5-day pass I just bought for my Disney trip.
I got the plus. I mean, it's going to encompass all of Lucasfilm's Star Wars, the Pixar stuff, all of Disney's archives. Plus, that's all they came up with. No Magic Kingdom, no Portal, nothing. But they did confirm Mike's news last week that Loki is getting his own TV show with Tom Hiddleston. So that's interesting.
Good.
They announced this. They will be carrying the last season of Clone Wars exclusively on this platform. And we already know that the live-action Star Wars, The Mandalorian, that Jon Favreau is directing, is going on this. And they just announced there is a second live Star Wars show that's going to be following Diego Luna's character from Rogue One, Cassian Andor. And I guess it's going to have to be, because again, all those characters died. So it's going to have to be a lead up to Rogue One.
That's going to have to be a prequel to Rogue One.
Right. And he was, I will say, out of all those characters, he was probably one of the most fun to watch.
Was he the one with the Force? The Force is with me, or
no? That I would like to see that guy get his own.
Right, I would like to see it. Right. Oh, the other thing, yeah. So that's basically it for the Disney Plus. Mike, your girlfriend from Iron Fist, Jessica Henwick, who played, was it Colleen Wing?
Yep, Colleen.
Yep. She has been added to our King Kong versus Godzilla.
Ooh,
really?
Well, there's a reason for Mike to watch. Although I keep saying it's actually Godzilla versus King Kong. They flipped it. So Godzilla's getting top billing.
Oh, so it has an official title at this point?
Well, that's what I keep seeing, which is Godzilla versus King Kong. They may change it at the end. I didn't realize she was on Game of Thrones and she was in The Force Awakens. The only other thing I'll bring up, we talked about the PG version of Deadpool. That now has a title and a release date. It is called Once Upon a Deadpool, and it's being released next month
in theaters
with additional footage shot around Fred Savage. So it'll be Princess Bride type with him kind of playing that character. And I guess they shot new stuff, but it'll be PG. And $1 for each ticket will go to this foundation called, you're going to have to bleep me out, but it's called Fuck Cancer. So it's a PG movie promoting cancer. I guess they're renaming it Fudge Cancer.
So, but the question is, are we going to see this in theaters?
I don't know if I need to see it.
Yeah, same here.
I don't know. If it's a slow news week, we might have to just to compare it. But I'd have to watch the other one again just to know what they cut out and what was added.
Well, Black Friday is coming up, so I think that it's only $5.99 Blu-ray at Best Buy.
You're all over Amazon right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
There you go. So that's my news.
Good news.
Good news. So as we mentioned before, we're going to talk Rick Grimes and The Walking Dead.
Grimes doesn't pay.
So AMC, as we mentioned before, have been heavily promoting Rick's final episode, which is only 3 episodes in. We're only 3 episodes in, correct?
I thought he had like 8 episodes or something.
Yeah, they were going to drag it out to the mid-season break.
Right.
But no, 3 episodes in. Are they taking a break now? Because we had that big reveal of what's coming up, and it's a time jump. So,
which I'm very excited about. We'll get into that, but I think that this is probably what the show needs.
Are we on a break now? Are they keeping regular Sunday night episodes?
I mean, that would suck for them to go 3 episodes and then make us wait all the way through the holidays, because that's usually what happens, right?
Yeah, if I were them, I wouldn't do it that way, right? I mean, keep it moving while it's moving.
Right, because now you're getting eyes back on a show that they probably haven't watched in a while, and they went out of their way to show you the next 3 episode clips, which, as Jim mentioned, is a time jump, and you're immediately introduced to new characters. And I think that this is probably the best thing that could happen for the show that's been on almost 10 years anyways.
And no, they are not taking a break. It'll be a new episode. It's episode 6.
Okay.
Oh, they're farther in than I thought then.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Okay.
Well, so this is 6. So this was 5. So he lasted 5 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess once he was done, he was done. He's like, that's it, I'm done.
Was the premiere a 2-hour episode? Maybe sometimes they count
shows
those
now. You can't even. These shows are 1 hour and 12 minutes. They're 1 hour and 20 minutes. Like, you can't. It's not like you can just block out an hour and be like, all right, I'm going to watch this show, and then it's like, all right, I got to be in bed by 10:30 because I actually have to work tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, there's another 40 minutes. It's all over the place. Just make a rule, stick with it.
Yeah, these are the shows that I'm thankful that I'm DVRing. So
well, I DVR
sit up there and watch. Yeah,
and it's amazing because when you fast forward, it's a good 4 or 5 minutes of commercials.
Yeah, it is.
Each clip.
And for some reason, this could be just me, but it seems like there's more commercials in The Walking Dead than there are in any other show.
Yeah, well, I guess it's still probably their premiere show, even though it's lost a significant audience from its start.
Yeah, in terms of AMC shows, I'm sure it's still the flagship. So season, so let's talk this season a little bit before we get into Rick himself.
Because even this is a little bit of a time jump from last season.
It is, because we've got Negan sitting in a cell, as Rick promised.
So at the end of last season, he spared his life, cut his throat, spared his life, much to Maggie's chagrin.
And now he's down below in the basement somewhere in Alexandria. And Maggie has not visited Alexandria because he's there. So she's staying well away until this most recent episode. So, then besides that, we've been preoccupied this season with the building of a bridge, not the most exciting of storylines. So again, it was just fueling my comment last week or 2 weeks ago that it's really at this point just Little House on the Prairie with zombies.
And even then, the zombies are kind of few and far between. That's why I felt that the 2 big hordes that they brought in there, it was almost like an answer to the audience critics that are like, this show is Little House on the Prairie. You don't see any zombies anymore. Oh, we're gonna give you zombies. We're gonna give you.
I must admit that season premiere where they go to Washington and they try to take that horse.
Oh, that was a nice set piece.
That was
a nice set piece.
Yeah, when they try to get it over that glass floor and the whole thing's cracking like a frozen river, it was pretty cool. It was very suspenseful.
You knew, yes, and a couple of them suspended from it. Yeah, I don't know how heavy was that wagon really. Would it really have cracked that glass?
Probably not. Probably not. But ever since then, it's been, let's build the bridge. These saviors aren't happy with building the bridge. They're not happy with being given orders from the Alexandrians. And
they're looking to rebel.
But I think what this show is missing, and I think it has been for quite some time, is I don't think it's ever had it, actually, is a sense of humor. Or a little bit of
it's always taking itself very seriously.
Extremely seriously.
But listen, we were completely invested in this. You go back, and this is the one thing I think as we get into talking about the last episode, where Rick is having these visions of past characters he's encountered, is you start realize, especially when they bring in Shane, you realize it makes you remember just like how gritty and unpredictable the show was, and that like how safe it is now.
It's true, because back then the seriousness was all built around the apocalyptic situation and the zombies. Now it's like a soap opera-ish seriousness in between the characters. So I think that's where it's lacking. And the coming attractions, not only the time jump looks exciting, but the fact that the hordes are evolving. I've seen some commercials.
Yeah, I guess that's that they're somehow learning. They're like there was that vision with the bird flocking, and that almost is where I took it, where it was like, all right, so if you got like one lead zombie that kind of has a plan, like the rest of them are just going to follow him. I don't know. I don't know. They're now smart zombies. I guess after a while, it's like you got to do something else.
If that much time goes by, wouldn't you think that you would just be able to outlast the zombies? They would rot and not be able to move anymore. After
you would like to think that there'd be nothing but skeletons floating around.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we got to be, like 5 years in? I mean, 4 years.
Easily. I mean, Judith is...
She was like a 6-year-old or 7-year-old in that time jump.
See, I was going to give her a little more credit in that and actually say probably closer to like 8 or 9.
Yeah, that's where I was.
Okay. So then there you
Guessing.
go. Well, the argument is that as long as there's humans, that there'll be zombies, because whenever you die, you turn.
Sure.
But, even when we left the episode before the time jump, the humans are in the vast minority. So, yeah, you would think that the zombies would just degenerate at some point, but it's not happening. So let's get into Rick. Let's get into the promise from AMC that this was going to be his final episode. Kind of duping everyone, in my opinion, because you were leading up to this big heroic death, which he had, and then it was stolen. It was
literally stolen.
Yeah,
but you knew in the first 2 minutes which way this was going to go in this episode, right?
What, that he was going to survive?
Yeah, I did. I was like, I know where this
I did not.
I think you wanted it to be, well, so go back to the episode prior where he's on the horse and he comes to the crossroads and there's 2 zombie hordes and the horse freaks out and he falls and he's now impaled and he's there and they're like merging on him. This is it. And then you immediately see the previews and you realize he lives, and I'm just like, I hate previews. Yeah. It's just like you've ruined all the suspense.
Yeah, that was exactly. You did not need to even show a preview. That cliffhanger
just clip
to bring you back. Yeah.
But no, we have to immediately show that he survives. So now the tension is already. I had a whole week that I could be concerned with this character.
All those flashbacks could have taken place in the space of 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Weren't you sort of thinking, you have that garbage patch woman, what's her name, Jane? and, she's got this, walkie-talkie with the helicopter, and you're thinking, how is this going to play into this overall?
And now you'll never know, because if this is his last episode, you can't go back to that plot line without bringing him into it.
That means that she's off the show as well.
Right. So she flies. Well, spoiler alert. We should really start putting that up front. So she gets in the helicopter with Rick. He survives, and she picks him up. The helicopter comes down. They get in and fly off, and they've already got him bandaged up or whatever. But you can't go back to that storyline without telling us what happened to him. So that doesn't make it. Yeah, I had issues with that. So if it's his last episode, does he die off screen? Do we just make a mention that, he didn't survive the helicopter ride? Is he going to be like Colonel Blake in MASH?
If anyone watched The Talking Dead, they sort of explain this. Rick will not return to the Walking Dead episodes, but they're going to do standalone movies.
What?
Oh yeah, you didn't know that, Jeff?
No, I didn't know
that. Yeah, AMC announced they're doing a trilogy.
That's what you mentioned before.
Yeah, they're doing a trilogy of Rick Grimes movies that will be separate.
Now I feel really cheated.
Yes,
right. I don't like it at all. I really don't like that at all.
So we're assuming that these 3 movies will be Rick's swan song for the Walking Dead world, unless he, walks off into the sunset at the end of it.
I don't like this at all. I don't like it.
I bet he comes back to the series.
But it is. This reeks of Dumpstergate to me. This is
just I mean, even to the right. I was just speaking with somebody else. When they went to the point where you didn't know if Glenn was alive or dead, And they even pulled his name from the credits just to kind of fuel the fire. No, Glenn was alive.
Yeah.
Oh,
So this story will be continued in these 3
Okay.
movies.
All right. I did not know that. Yeah. Okay.
It seems like an odd time for them to do it with their ratings in decline. They're going for broke almost.
Boy, but I guess you've got, how much are you really going to spend budget wise? You're probably going to get your money back plus in a movie. You're going to get the Die Hard. It's kind of like when X-Files went to no movies, but at least the X-Files movies tied in one season to another. Like it was integral to the storyline.
Right. Yeah. These
I feel like you could just say, there
goes.
goes Rick. Rick is gone.
Yeah.
And we'll never know what happened to him.
But they're not going to be theatrical. They're going to be TV movies on AMC.
Oh.
Yeah.
On their streaming service?
I guess, maybe.
Okay. All right. Wow. I gotta absorb that.
You need a minute, Jeff?
I do. I guess that kind of, I don't know if that, I don't know. It doesn't make me favor this. I like the episode. I had some issues with the whole character flat when he was, so I loved the return of Shane. And the one thing with Shane, which you forget the fact that Judith is his child.
Well, so he says.
Well, I mean, Rick was in a freaking coma.
But the thing is, at the end, and I was like, suck it, Shane, which was, she introduces herself as Judith Grimes.
Yeah, well, Michonne's not going to be telling her that Shane was her father. Yeah.
And Laurie's going, so this was my concern, which was, so Rick is on his deathbed a death horse, for lack of a better term. That horse miraculously saved him 5 times. Sheba the tiger goes down, that this horse evades this mass of zombies at every turn.
After impaling him. It's the horse's fault that he was impaled.
Right? Sorry, my bad. All right, so we get Shane. We get Herschel, which I thought was very bittersweet, especially since we know that he's now officially dead in real life, which is sad. But he keeps talking about getting back to his family. How come we don't have a Carl flashback? If you're really dying, wouldn't you see your son one last time?
It was weird, and they had Sasha. And they weren't really close.
She must have, she must have been on hiatus.
Yeah, maybe she was on. Maybe they film on the next set over for Star Trek.
Right.
And he just came over.
So I thought that, but no Laurie, no Glenn. These are all characters that were very instrumental early on that I felt should have been.
You know who should have been in there? The governor. I would have loved to.
That would have been awesome. So the Sasha thing I thought was and it was interesting, But again, he's talking about getting back to his family, but those people weren't his family outside of Shane, who was really a brother to him.
But I did read that those bodies that they were walking over were supposed to be all characters from the show. That
it was hard to.
Some were actually, Daryl was there laying down, and Maggie was there laying down, and some people were body doubles for Carl and whoever. Everybody.
Do you think they just used all the same people who were zombies and just had them? All right, now we're gonna put you in regular clothes and you just lay, because it was a pretty impressive shot. I mean, he pulled back pretty far, and it was just a sea of bodies.
Yeah, they're probably still in their zombie makeup, just hiding their face.
They're hiding their face. I mean. I know you can get away with a lot in CG now, but that was pretty impressive.
I did see a screenshot where it was Eugene and Rosita holding hands in the bodies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so maybe something to come, maybe foreshadowing there.
I don't know.
Maybe Rick is just shipping Eugene and Rosita.
Yeah, right. And let's talk about Negan, because Maggie goes there specifically, marches in there specifically to kill him. She was very upset that they saved him to begin with.
And she sees that he is broken at this point.
I didn't like that at all either.
No, that scene, I thought that was a trick on his part.
You were waiting for him to pull a Negan.
Yeah.
To get her defenses down and to get access, and for him to be good. And I get it. He just broke down. He's like, kill me. Then she's like, I want to kill Negan. I don't know who you are. So she leaves him. Yeah. And I was like, that's a complete and utter waste of that character.
And this is another spoiler alert coming up here, because this is also about to be publicized by AMC if it hasn't already. But Maggie has her own ABC show at this point. So
I think that was actually to say right after Andrew Lincoln announced that he was leaving. I think so.
So I was thinking that Negan was going to kill her, and that's how she was going to exit the show, but it didn't happen.
But is she going to do both shows or exit? Because now she's sort of the leader.
No. The interview that I read with her, she's a little disgruntled, I think, with AMC that her last contract negotiations didn't go so well. I think that's part of the reason, and she's going to see. Actually, it's very open-ended. It sounds like she's going to see how this ABC show does, and then she may or may not come back.
Let's see what the ratings are before I commit. She's like, I want to leave, but man, I still like that paycheck, even though it's not quite what I wanted. So do we have any theories about this helicopter?
Just that it's ridiculous. Is he an A or a B? I was like,
well, what does that mean?
Is this more like garbage people language? Do we really need?
Well, that was my other question. Because Rick is obviously a B, but the priest was an A. Don't you think A would supersede a B?
This is what Mike and I were having this conversation. This came up exactly that. Yes, you would think that the A would be the alpha,
right?
B would be something less than that, but apparently that's not the case. They're switched.
What's the priest's name? Because I can never remember.
Gabriel.
Oh yeah, that's a little spot on.
Yeah.
I've never liked his character. I did see him in the previews, but I don't remember what happened to him. Did she let him go? I thought maybe he was still on the helicopter with her.
Yeah, no, he woke up in that container.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Because she was going to feed him to the zombie, and
that whole thing seems stupid to me. Really, they don't need to have another evil group come in. What they really need to do is focus on the zombies and maybe start looking at the cause of this whole thing again.
But outside of what's his name? No, I don't think anybody has any kind of pedigree to know what to do with to find a cure.
Well,
at this point,
that's the writer's job, not the
So I have some serious issues with the blowing up of the bridge. It was a nice set piece. It was Rick Kixie comes like, we need to save the bridge. We need to save the bridge. And then at the end, he realized I need to blow up the bridge. So he detonates this thing. It explodes. Burning zombies are falling everywhere. And you have all of his friends on either side of the river trying to get to him. Not a single person went to go see if he was still alive or to put him out of his misery if he turns. Friggin' what's his name? Daryl sheds a tear and then walks away. Go kill your friend humanely so he's not walking around as a zombie.
Or at least see if he's still alive. Yeah.
Correct. No, they all just turn around. Oh, Rick, what did you do? And they just turned around and walked away. I'm like, come on.
It was a fitting end. It was an epic end that he made the decision to blow the bridge. And as we were saying before, that noble end that he came to was really stolen once this whole helicopter.
Yeah, and you see, and then what's her name? Garbage Pail Lady finds him on the beach.
And she finds him on the beach. He's in who knows what bacteria and zombie crap that's in the water.
He's
probably swallowed it. But yet again,
he's got a gaping hole in his gullet.
If you get bitten, then you die and you turn. But no, you could spill zombie whatever into your open wounds, and that doesn't count.
Yeah, well, they lather themselves up in zombie blood from time to time.
Yeah,
which
and I'm sure,
once they should do it all the time because that was the one way that they could get around without being detected.
The whole episode was kind of like a slow motion chase. Rick is just barely outpacing.
Just barely. And every time he passed out, it's time to wake up. And he'd wake up and there's a zombie in his face.
So I read something extremely cool, and it makes me want to go back and freeze frame this sequence. When Rick finds the cabin, that cabin that he comes across was completely based on the design of the cabin from Evil Dead because Greg Nicotero worked on the movie. The deer head in there was from Evil Dead.
Really?
And there's a screenshot online. If you freeze frame it, the Necronomicon is on a table.
No. No. That's where they should have gone. He should have just opened that book, recited it, and just gone into another.
So that body in there could only mean it was Ash. Yeah.
I thought it as a joke that was the
no, that's straight up. That was a cabin from the Evil Dead.
Too bad he didn't open the door. That could have been Tucker and Dale in there.
It could have been.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cabin in the woods as well.
Yeah, there you go.
You could open the cellar and seen the little the conch shell for the merman.
The merman's in there waiting for you.
So what do we think an A and a B is?
I have no clue.
Become a slave? What is he going to do?
Whatsoever.
Yeah, I was with you, Jim, as we were talking about it, which was I thought A was alpha, and who's an alpha if it's not Rick?
Right.
right? I mean, where else?
Or maybe whoever these helicopter people are, they have a society where you're an A or a B, like you're a worker drone or you're something else. I know, maybe they're bringing them back to impregnate their queen. Who knows what they're going to do?
Get to work, grind.
I've got to be.
Yeah,
He's worthy. He's worthy. Is this group of people in the helicopter, are these the same helicopters that you've been seeing throughout the show every once in a while?
One would have to suppose so, right?
In the first season, Rick saw one flying overhead.
Right. And now what about that? I mean, she's literally, like, she just plucked Rick out of the river, and then the helicopter drops down. Nobody else sees or hears this thing.
It's true, yeah. They should be looking for Rick, one, as you were saying. Right. And if they are looking for Rick, they would be canvassing the area, and they would definitely hear that helicopter coming down.
Yeah, because the first thing you do is follow downstream. All right, he's not here.
It's not like Jaden or Jadis or whatever her name is could have carried him a mile away and to wherever they were going to rendezvous with a helicopter.
I do like the little preview with a kind of slightly grown-up Judith, and it looks like they're bringing in some new characters.
Yeah, it was the best part of the episode.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, no pun intended, but this show needs some new blood.
So, yeah, I do have some optimism about the way the show is going. Not so much about this news with the 3 movies.
That I'm not crazy about.
That still is a gimmick.
They would have to do some serious promoting to get me to be like, all right, I need to watch that. You can watch Rick die a second time.
Yeah, these helicopter people, they'll just have another Negan that he has to deal with once he gets to wherever.
Right, yeah. Just another level on his way to the big boss.
Yeah. And it seemed to me like he was at death's door. All it takes is a bandage and a ride in a helicopter, and he's gonna live.
Yeah, they put an IV in and he's cured.
Yeah. You know, put a cork in that hole and he's good to go.
I think I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I DVR these things, so it's like when you have a spare moment, you know, it's a good thing to watch because there's no way. I mean, the episodes are now like an hour and 8 minutes, and I'm convinced that they added the 8 minutes to add 8 minutes of commercials.
That makes sense. But yes, I think showcasing the 3 new episodes coming up did a lot for me as well. Kind of like, all right, I see where they're going. They're not lamenting. They're all not sitting around boo-hooing that he's gone. You know, who's going to lead us now? They've moved on. I like the time jump. And obviously you're going to play catch up. I got the impression that Daryl just kind of disappears and he's not a part of this group at all. Carol looks like she's a recluse. So I like to see someone else step up. It's time.
The consensus is we're going to continue on. We're going to.
Yeah. As much as we said last week, that this could be a swan song. Doesn't live and breathe by Rick Grimes alone. I mean, it's been his story from the beginning, but let's see what they got for us. I have one more question though. How the hell did Chris Hardwick get his job back?
I know. It makes no sense whatsoever, right?
You see, I found it difficult watching the show before, and now I cannot. I have to turn it off immediately.
Yeah, I don't record it. I don't watch it. And again, I DVR this stuff, so even a little preview setting in through the episode, I just fast forward straight through.
What's the advantage to AMC to have him come back?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, unless her allegations were completely baseless. But still, he's got that taint about him.
I know, and even if a tiny
even announced that the other lady was going to replace him.
They did, but even if a tiny percentage of those allegations are true, like even if 1% of the allegations are true, it paints a very bad picture.
I don't know. Maybe that's why he's not getting top-notch actors on the show now. Like, I'm not going on that show with him.
Well, Carol was on it.
Andrew Lincoln would have been on there last night or the other night.
They did do an interview with him. That was not on The Talking Dead. So they left The Talking Dead, and then they did the interview with Andrew Lincoln, and they came back to Talking Dead.
Okay. I will say, I know this artist, Brian Rude. He did that big, I guess I gave him a shout out on the show, but he did that big illustration that was behind Hardwick during the episode. It was pretty badass. That's all I got to say about this show.
So should we make a visit to our concession stand?
Yes, please. I'm hungry.
Let's do it.
It's intermission time, folks. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies. Everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now.
Our classic feature.
This is a classic.
Jeff has brought this movie up on a number of occasions.
Although Mike doesn't seem to remember it. But.
And I've never heard of it. Never even heard of it before. And now, Jeff, this is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yes,
So
correct.
Jeff, how did you happen upon this movie?
It's on Netflix, and I just one aimless night flipping through, read the description, and it was just kind of like, all right, I'll give this a shot. And I think within the first 10 minutes, I was completely sold on it. So
And I would agree. This is
nice.
Yep, it was a delight.
Nice.
Yeah. So the only actor of note in here is Alan Tudyk.
Yeah.
That our listening audience might remember him from Firefly, and he's done a number of things.
The voice in Rogue One, you said, the robot.
Yes, he was the voice of the robot in Rogue One as well. So
Firefly.
he is a big genre face and personality, is Alan Tudyk, and he is in this movie as he Tail?
He was Tucker.
And so the setup of this movie is really simple. What if the roles were reversed in a typical hillbilly horror movie? What if the hillbillies were the good guys and the college kids were the murderers? So,
and you're off and running. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, jumping from that simple setup, it's just so funny. It's just the way they subvert all these classic Hills Have Eyes type scenarios and put it all on the college kids. And all Tucker and Dale are looking to do is renovate their summer home in the woods.
Right, and, which is just a rundown shack, which looks like the one Rick came across. It's just a... And they were like, this is awesome. And it just, it's a piece of crap.
So we should actually maybe pause here for a second because there'll be a ton of spoilers on this. But it is such a delightful movie that you should probably tune this off and then go watch the movie and come back to it.
It is on Netflix still.
Because I so totally enjoyed this movie. I was not expecting it.
I am so happy because I remember being so thrilled with this when I saw it the first time. And then when I watched it again the other night, the whole time I'm like, oh, I hope these guys like this movie. Because once you kind of know what's coming, it's not as delightful. It's a little more, what's about to happen.
It's true. Yeah. The title is a little misleading because I thought there was going to be some kind of supernatural element to this, although that's not the case. And it's stronger, I think, for it, that it just really sticks with its formula and goes and follows it throughout the film.
Yeah,
I mean, I think maybe film is too classy of a word to describe it.
Well, it's funny because this thing sat on the shelf for like 3 years. This was a Canadian production, and they just didn't get any kind of U.S. distribution. It really kind of picked up some ground when it was showcased at one of the Canadian film festivals, I think the Toronto. The reviews, people just loved it.
So how long ago did you see it initially?
Oh, easily probably a year, if not 2 years ago.
So it's been on Netflix for some time.
It has been. I was very surprised that it was still on there. Eli Craig directed this, who also directed Zombieland.
Oh, I did not know that.
And currently in production on Zombieland 2. But this was produced in 2010, and I think it was like 2011 when it showcased at the film festival. It's not a spoof. Would you call it a parody? It's not even really a parody. It's just kind of its own. And you know what I can equate it to? It's like Shaun of the Dead, kind of.
I think it's its own thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to relate it.
It does set up the initial scenes where the kids stop for gas and they come across Tucker and Dale.
Yeah, it's like, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, and then one of the kids goes in and there's this hilarious guy behind the counter.
Can I help you?
Yeah. Where's your beer at?
Beer's in the back.
Yeah, he's missing like 3 teeth. Oh, where's your beer?
So this is the setup for any other horror movie. So
yeah. They're all the preppy. The prep. And there's like 6 guys and 2 girls, which is just like, that's a little disproportionate.
So Dale, who's the
3 girls. There's 3. Sorry.
But we have Dale, who's the sweeter of the 2 hillbillies, and Tucker. I don't know. Are they brothers? Is that ever?
No, I think they were just kind of like best friends. They brought up a couple times, in high school. Dale is played by Tyler Labine, who really, I think, Rise of the Planet of the Apes is the only credit that I saw him have that anybody would probably even recognize.
But he's probably the highlight of this movie. Is Dale?
Yeah, because again, right, like you say, you're playing with role playing, but subverted, where they're just 2 buddies getting beer and they're going out they have a vacation home. Tell those girls, oh, I can't talk to that girl. I got an ugly face. No, go over there and tell her you have a vacation home. Girls love that,
And then he walks over there with a scythe.
Right, and he goes, just smile a lot and laugh. Hey, ladies, where are you going? And they're just looking like, we need to get out of here.
The big turning point event is that the vacation home is, of course, adjacent to where these college kids are camping out in the woods. As Tucker and Dale are out fishing at night, they happen to see through the trees. The college kids are going skinny dipping, or various forms of.
I was going to say the word.
Not quite skinny dipping.
Yeah.
And so the girl that Dale is sweet on, they see her fall off a rock and hit her head. So they.
Well, they scare her,
yeah.
Right.
So she falls off the rock and she hits her head. So they save her from drowning. But the friends who are off in the distance see, or one of them sees them dragging
hauling her into the boat.
So from that point on, the college kids kind of mount an assault on Tucker and Dale, who are just trying to nurse this girl back to health to get her back to her friends. And they all end up killing themselves, trying to kill Tucker and Dale.
It is very gory and very bloody, but in a fun way, I guess.
There's one scene where Tucker is feeding the wood chipper as from...
Some kid. He just hooked himself right into the wood chipper. What? Head first right into the wood chipper. From his shoes and his pants, it looked like it might have been one of the college kids. Is that your blood? Well, no, it's college kid blood. One of those suckers came running out of nowhere and speared himself straight through the gut and died right on top of me, Todd.
You're not going to
believe it, Dale. You're not going to believe it.
This college kid
just threw. It's like a mass suicide out there.
And then the cop comes and they're trying to get the legs out of they're dragging the legs
they're
behind.
literally pulling the severed torso. The cop walks up and he's like, "Do we look like psycho killers to you?"
Hello, officer. Good to see you again. Yep. We've had a doozy of a day. A real doozy. There we were. Yep. Minding our own business. Yep. Making some improvements to my new house. The new house? When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these kids started killing themselves all over my property.
And then the cop goes into their...
Oh, and the kids are all in the car. Like, don't go in the house. Don't go in the house.
So he goes in the house. He leans on one of the supports, which is already loose. And then the board comes down, and there's a nail coming off the board, which hits the cop right in the head. And it's one of the best lines in the movie. Tucker's like, "Oh, he's going to walk it off. He's going to
walk it off." And he is. He's just kind of like walking back to the car with this platform of nails sticking out of his forehead. And then he drops dead. The kids jump out. They grab the cop gun. And he's pointing at them point blank, and he goes to shoot him. He's like, Dale's like, "No, you got to put the safety off." And so the kid's like, and of course he shoots himself in the head. So they're like dropping like flies. And these two hillbillies are like, "What the hell is going on here?" And while you got the lead preppy guy who's convinced that these guys are like, "Oh, he tells a story early on about 20 years ago."
Yeah, the Memorial Day Massacre.
Memorial Day Massacre. Yeah. Yes.
Where similar college kids were massacred by hillbillies. And it turns out that it was a true story, that it was he's talking about his own parents and their friends.
And you find out that at the end that he is in fact the hillbilly psycho. So again, completely flips everything. He's just obsessed with killing these two guys.
And he's still alive at the end, because the beginning of the movie is kind of like a flash forward to the end.
Well, that's right. So that's what I wanted to say, which is it opens with like this found footage type of a thing. And you see a glimpse of him. That's not in a movie at all. So it's like, so now he like lives out there.
So there could be a sequel.
Could be.
Yeah.
Although without those two main characters. I mean, I will say Tudyk, he gets most of the pratfalls and he saws into a bee's nest. So now all of a sudden, the kid's creeping up on the cabin and he's being swarmed by bees while he's got the chainsaw. So he's running around the corner, swinging the chainsaw for all it's worth, screaming. And of course, this kid's like, "He's going to try and kill me." And he tries to outrun him and immediately impales himself on a tree, which was pretty funny. And no one finds him until the end of the movie.
And the kid, right before the kid impales himself, he realizes that Tucker is outrunning him and he's not actually trying to kill him. Yeah,
they're like running side by side looking at each other.
So, this was a very, very pleasant surprise. And I enjoyed it probably more so than any comedy that I've watched in quite some time. So I would totally recommend this. Are we ready to give it buckets? Are we at that point in the conversation yet?
I think so.
Yeah.
I would give it 4. Solid 4 buckets for me.
Yeah.
Solid 4. Absolutely.
All right, I'm right behind you. Let's go 4 across the board.
All right.
This is just a very fun, pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and like Mike said, we don't really want to over-explain it and give you too many of the jokes, because just go out and discover it for yourself.
And the other thing, too, I was on IMDb, and I guess if you watch the trailer for this, it really gives a lot of it away. And you get the sense of what's really going on, but just go into it. It really is enjoyable, and I'm tickled that you guys liked it.
This is one of those ones that I'm surprised didn't get like really good word of mouth and pick up steam back when was this movie originally made?
2010.
2010.
But like I said, for whatever reason, it sat on the shelf for a while. It actually won a couple awards in the Canadian market. It never really found its mark here in the U.S. So they must have just dumped it on Netflix, and I don't ever remember it being in the theater.
Yeah, this is easily as good, I think, as Shaun of the Dead. It's right up there with that for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is our highest average score, where we all scored
It could
4.
be, yeah. Your Steelbox versions are in the mail.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sometimes you just got to go for it. Sometimes you know a movie and you're like, all right, this is something I need to share.
At this point, we are finally going to get to our Night Stalker episode.
Night Stalker.
How long have we put this off?
Yeah,
4
it's
weeks?
now a month later.
Yeah, I'm still putting it off.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so Mike only has his childhood memories to go by in his discussion of this episode. So what this is the final segment of our childhood trauma series, where I picked Beware the Blob, Jeff picked An American Werewolf in London, and Mike has picked an obscure episode of The Night Stalker, already in a semi-obscure show itself, but an obscure episode of The Night Stalker called The Trevi Collection. About
you had to do a fair amount of research to figure this one out, didn't you?
Witches in the fashion industry. All I had to go by was witches, witch face, or witch, something like that. So,
yeah, and I wonder if I'm just keep putting it off, subconsciously, because every time I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch that again. I'm going to watch that again. And I knew this was coming up, and I'm like, okay, I'll watch it tomorrow night and yesterday night, and I never did.
There's probably a lot to be said about that you don't want to relive that childhood trauma. I mean, now Jim had issues when we were watching Beware the Blob. Yeah.
I did.
It could very well be your subconscious going, you know what? Leave it alone, Mike. Just leave it alone.
So, Jim, lead us into the plot, and we'll see how much of this I actually recall.
Okay. Well, first, let's just give an overview of The Night Stalker itself, the show. This is really the precursor to The X-Files.
Yeah.
And Bruce Carter, the creator of The X-Files, will totally own up to this, and he has.
Well, they've actually had Darren McGavin on the show, too, correct?
Yeah, so, Darren McGavin, he's the dad from A Christmas Story.
Christmas Story, always will ever be. Yep.
And he stars as Carl Kolchak, who is a reporter who happens to specialize in paranormal phenomena, and it kind of just falls into his lap every week. I don't think he sets out to investigate anything that's, supernatural, but it just happens to be that it happens all the time around
That's
him.
the way most 70s TV shows are.
It started with a Night Stalker TV movie, which was a standalone and had the character of Kolchak in it, who was investigating a series of murders in Las Vegas, and it turns out it's a vampire. So
I heard that's the plot of the Rick Grimes AMC movie, by the way.
Yeah. That would be great if it was. So that movie did so well in the ratings for ABC that they brought him back for another TV movie called The Night Strangler, which also did well. So at that point, they said, let's just give this guy a show. Hence the Night Stalker TV show, which lasted just one season, not quite as successful as those two movies, because I think it was like 10, 12 episodes and then done.
Were the movies as funny? Were they as
absolutely. And they actually, both the movies had that same boss that he goes back and forth with in the show.
Because that is the one thing I was very surprised with, was the amount of humor that was in this. And I'm like, this is actually like Jim, we talked about, let's just review this entire show.
Yeah. Well, actually, the original Night Stalker movie wasn't so much. There was
I was going to say, you put Stalker in there and you're kind of like,
Yeah, there was laughs in it, but it was kind of straight up
Strangler
horror.
Stalker,
but the Night
Strangler,
that's where the humor started coming in.
Oh, really? I thought it would be the opposite way.
No. So then with the show, they just went all out. So it is a very funny show, and this episode was no exception. So it starts out, here's the setup of the show, right? So Carl Kolchak is going to the 1975 fashion runway show of this one particular designer, Trevi, her name is, Madame Trevi. And he's not there to cover the fashion show, but he's there to meet one of his snitches who's got some information about organized labor or something to that effect, right? So he's sitting there watching the fashion show, and his guy that he's supposed to meet is backstage because he's just that kind of a creep. And he's taking pictures of all the designs of Madame Trevi.
All the latest designs.
Because after he sells Kolchak this information, he's going to sell that information to somebody else, right? So this guy's taking pictures of all the designs, and all of a sudden...
Ralph Lauren's waiting with a check.
Yeah, all of a sudden the mannequins in the back room come alive, and all attack this guy. But it's really, all the mannequins are pushed really towards this guy.
Right. There's a stagehand at the bottom underneath the camera, just moving him forward every couple minutes.
And a few of the shots, like there's the mannequin face here, then there's a mannequin face there. Then all of a sudden you see a real woman's face, like that's portraying a mannequin. And you totally know that that's a woman and that's a mannequin. But
and then next thing you know, the guy's being thrown out the window.
Thrown out the window, and it's like 3 stories up. He lands on a car, not a dent on the car that he's lying on.
They made those cars pretty sturdy back then.
Yeah, they did. So, of course, Kolchak gets wind that his informant has been thrown out the window. So that becomes his investigation throughout the episode to find out what happened to this guy. So he questions one of the models, Mike, who is your witch, it turns out, at the end of the episode.
Melody was her name?
I forget what her name was. Vincenzo, his editor, his boss, Kolchak's boss. And they always have a lot of witty banter back and forth whenever Kolchak is in the office. As they're looking at the informant's pictures, because Kolchak got his camera, the boss says,
he wasn't much of a photographer.
Yeah, he wasn't much of a skydiver either.
But it's all like deadpan.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very deadpan.
And it had Doc from the Love Boat playing a doctor.
Bernie Copel. And that was pre-Love Boat, was it not? Maybe. I'm like, and he played a doctor. I'm like, I wonder if that's the same character, but it wasn't.
So the setup is, Kolchak starts interviewing this model. And as the episode goes on, he starts to see some weird stuff. There's a cat that attacks one of the models at one point.
Oh, Ariel. Yeah, Clauser.
And it really is just this woman holding a cat above her and the cat's just like looking confused rather than aggressive. So,
but they add a couple hissing sound effects.
Yes,
you're good to go.
So it seems that something wrong is afoot, and then Madame Trevi herself takes ill. The model has been telling Kolchak that Trevi is a witch. But it turns out, in fact, that the model herself is the witch, and she has a voodoo doll of Madame Trevi, and that's why Madame Trevi is in the hospital. Madame Trevi tells Kolchak at one point that he has to find the voodoo doll or she's going to die in the hospital. Right. And then Kolchak finally goes backstage to where the guy was thrown out of the window, to Madame Trevi's office, looking for this voodoo doll, and here comes the model witch to confront him. And here's the big scene that we're leading up to. Kolchak has learned in his research about witches.
Well, he went to a seance.
He did. He went to a seance.
He went to the seance.
Yeah, and they asked him for a nominal fee, and then when he puts in the dollar, the witch goes, not that nominal.
Not that nominal. Which as a kid would fly right over your head.
Yeah.
These jokes, yeah.
So he's got all this information about witches, and he finds out like that if you smash a mirror, that's like a cross to a vampire. And that witches hate water, like cats. So they have an altercation. The witch sends the mannequins on Kolchak, like she did the Snoop in the beginning of the episode. He gets past the mannequins. He grabs the witch, and he puts her face into a vat of blue dye, because we're in the back office of a fashion designer. She's got a tub of red dye, a tub of blue dye.
I think the red would have been a little too gory.
The red would have been too much.
Yeah, I think so.
So he's putting her head in, and he's yelling these things like, drown, witch, you witch.
Is that after he smashed a mirror and she like freaked? There's a lot of women screaming in this episode.
Yes. So it's like a very loud scene. So he's smashing mirrors. She's screaming,
I'll kill you.
Yep, I'll kill you. So then he dunks her head into the blue vat of dye. He pulls her out, and her hair is blue. Her face is blue because of the dye, right? And her shirt is blue. So that's your scene, Mike. So it's the dye that's on her face.
I did not realize that at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, but it left it. It was very, it's intense because, there's a lot of screaming going, like shrill, these women. It was pretty intense. I can easily see where this would freak you out. as a kid.
And then either she chases him or he chases her out into the street.
Out into the street.
And at that point, she's got boils on her face because he did something. He pulled something else from his anti-witch bag, and she had boils on her face.
He just had all the answers at the end there.
So that could have been your scene as well because she
with
have
the
like
boils,
these big blisters. Yeah. So
I want to know, did you have an issue watching Mannequin with Kim Cattrall?
I did not. By that time, I put that behind me.
I didn't know if that brought up any trauma later on.
So how much of this do you remember, Mike?
The end.
Just the end.
Yeah, and I think maybe it was just so traumatic that it washed away everything else. But Jim, thank you for the therapy session.
he now needs new therapy.
But now I think I can face the world again.
So yes, as to Jeff's point, there's a lot of caterwauling going on. This woman is just screaming at the top of her lungs and laughing maniacally, intermittently throughout this.
Yes, right.
Throughout this sequence. So, especially after he dunks her head, because there's a lot of extreme close-ups of her blue face as she's screaming at him. So
there's also a lot of models walking around in bras, which was very titillating, I'm sure, to a 9-year-old.
Maybe that's how I started. I thought this had so much promise.
I'm gonna stick out for this episode. There you go. There it is. Mike's trauma.
But it was so enjoyable to watch.
Yeah,
I think maybe we should bring some other Night Stalker episodes.
I agree. Because there's an episode of Night Stalker that I remember specifically and had issues with, and it took me years to find out what it was. So we could easily go down that road.
So that leads us to our confessional this week.
Confessionals.
And seeing that we've had so many characters left by the side of the road, so to speak, on The Walking Dead, who would we like to see come back? So I'm going to let one of you guys go first. Who wants to go?
Jeff, go ahead.
All right. Well, I was leaning toward T-Dog, but I said no, we can't do that. Does anybody even remember T-Dog? That was like season 2, I think, at the most. I think only because he would make Daryl a more interesting character again is to bring back Merle.
Ooh,
his brother.
I like Merle.
He was Michael Rooker is an awesome character to begin with, just of his own right. But Merle made Daryl a more interesting watch. Daryl has become very one-dimensional of late. And with his brother, you kind of saw that he kind of fell in the shadows behind his brother. There were some issues going on there or whatever. And I think keeping him on the show would have been a little more interesting, bringing him back.
Yeah, you never really knew which way Daryl was going to turn when his brother was around. Like, was he still going to be on Rick's side, or was he going to side with Merle?
He was allegiant, aligned with his brother because he was his brother. And what's interesting is I think in the next to last episode recently, Rick actually makes mention of the facts when him and Daryl are fighting. He makes a comment about second chances, because he's mad that Negan was still alive as well. And he said, well, you gave the guy who left your brother on the rooftop with no hand to die a second chance, indicating that it was him.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. So Merle's my answer.
Nice choice.
Yeah, I don't think I can top that. I mean, I was actually thinking Carl, and it's a character that I didn't, particularly care for in the series until he died.
But now you miss him.
But now I miss him. And I was just like, and I kind of like where he was going, and he was going to grow up, to be, a Rick Grimes type of character. And he was kind of finding his way through this world.
Yeah.
I found him more interesting in the final seasons than I did earlier in the season. So I wanted to see where he was going.
Yep. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, because he really became the go-between between Negan and Rick in those last couple.
And it was really the one thing that the two of them. I mean, Negan genuinely had respect for Carl, which I thought was an interesting. If Carl had continued down that road, would would they have kind of ended up working together? At least had a little bit of a truce. I like that.
Yeah, I would say, and my choice would be the governor. I mentioned him already earlier.
You did.
But I think that he was probably my favorite bad guy on the show. I think was a far superior bad guy to Negan, just because he's just scarier. He's more intelligent than Negan, and because of that, he's scarier to me.
Yeah, Negan's brute force.
Yeah.
Rules by intimidation.
I was shocked when they killed the governor. I thought that they would have him go off after the prison altercation because he survived, say, Woodbury. It is Woodbury, isn't it?
Yeah, Woodbury, yeah. The Woodbury Commons.
Woodbury Commons.
He went shopping during the Christmas rush.
So he survived that altercation, and then only to come back to the prison, and then they killed him off. So I was very sorry to see him go. I would have liked to have seen him disappear maybe for 3 or 4 seasons and have him come back, kind of like Morgan did. So, yeah. So, and to see him with Negan would have been awesome.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have.
See, Morgan would have been, well, I guess he's on the other show, so he would have been a good answer as well. Yeah. Abraham was my backup. Gone too soon. Although I do miss Dale as well. But
yeah, I was actually thinking of Dale in the
Were you? Well, he was the voice of reason for the longest time.
Yeah.
You know, he really was. And he would have thrived in this environment right now.
Yeah. Dale in his goofy hat.
How about Sophia? Would Carol be Carol if Sophia was still alive?
Oh,
that is interesting. Carol, outside of Maggie now, I think has had the biggest story arc. Carol, yeah, because you go back to the beginning. Carol was a nun. She was a little housewife.
Yeah.
What was her husband's name? We don't want him back.
No, we don't.
No.
She's probably my favorite character.
She's looking more and more like Jamie Lee Curtis every day.
Yeah, you're right. Should have her in the next Halloween.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. So there you go.
Yeah,
I like all our answers.
Yeah, that's a wrap.
So next week, as promised, we're going to reveal what we're going to do for our big Thanksgiving episode. We are going to have a TMI Monster Fest next week.
Monster Fest?
Revisit the days of sitting in your PJs. Well, not really your PJs, but sitting with your turkey leftovers the day after Thanksgiving, watching Godzilla flicks.
Godzilla.
At least that's what we did.
Jim, I'm beginning to think that that's all you did.
Let me tell you, the day after Thanksgiving was an appointment TV time. I was planning this for
Jim's
a year out. Yeah.
I remember HR Puffin stuff being big the day after Thanksgiving. Was that just me?
Well, HR Puffin stuff used to be on every day after school on PIX, I think. So I used to watch that every day as well.
I remember watching it like really early in the morning on Saturdays. But for whatever, maybe one year they did like a marathon, but it stuck with me.
Witchy Poo was kind
of
She was
a little bit traumatic for me
that was scary.
Yeah. But yes, we are going to revisit the world of Godzilla next week. We're going to cover King Kong versus Godzilla, the original 1963 version. And then we're going to move on to Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. So you're in for...
Or in Japanese version, he's Hedorah.
Yeah, or Godzilla versus Hedorah. But yeah, the version that we screened was the American International print, all you Godzilla freaks out there. So
there you go.
You're welcome. So listen in next week. And 2 weeks, I think we're going to breach the topic of Harry Potter for the first time on this.
That's right. We're going down that road. Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah. Yeah, so the week after our Thanksgiving show, we're going to hit Fantastic Beasts. So maybe we should do both movies, if that's not out of the question, since I think I need a refresher for the first one. And I don't
I've seen bits and pieces of Fantastic Beasts, but I have not seen the entire thing through.
Let's do it.
All right. So 2 weeks from now,
it's
Fantastic Beasts. Yeah. Thanksgiving, we're going to have Godzilla Monster Fest. So
I like it.
So as always, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
All right. Ciao.
Yeah.
Goodbye.